Hello! In today's Fix It Friday, which is sponsored by AliExpress, we're going to be looking at this. And this is a Sony PlayStation 1 that I picked up on eBay. Now, I picked it up as faulty. I think it was around about £25. And the fault is the disk drive isn't working. Now, I've looked at lots of consoles recently where the disk drive is going faulty, and it's just something that can happen with consoles of this era. The disk drives just start to fail as the lasers weaken. We do have a couple of methods that we could use to fix this. One of them would be to buy a replacement disk drive. They sell them on AliExpress. All you need to know is the model number of your existing disk drive and you can buy a replacement, and I think it's about sort of 15 quid for a new disk drive, which is pretty good value, and it's a simple swap in, swap out replacement. But because I like to make things a little bit difficult for myself, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be fitting something different, and that is an XStation device. And that will replace the CD drive that's in this already with a circuit board that has a micro SD card reader on it. And that means that we can play backups of all our legally owned games on this console without having to insert a CD. But the thing is with the XStation device is you need to make sure you get the model that's suitable for your version of PlayStation, because there are a lot of versions of PlayStation out there. But basically on the page where you buy your XStation from, it will show you a sort of table with different model numbers and the correct kit that you need to buy. But I'm just going a little bit belt and braces and just making sure I'm 100% getting the right kit, and I'm going to disassemble this first. There are lots of versions of the kit on AliExpress depending on what model of PlayStation 1 that you have, and also if you want an SD card included or not. I will go for the version with the SD card, so it's sort of easier to set up. Right, so let's just make sure this isn't working to start with. I mean, I believe the seller, but you know, we can test it. Now, thankfully, they actually included an AV cable. It is literally a composite video cable, so I might treat myself to an RGB cable from AliExpress as well. And yeah, we've got a controller included too. Now, I'm a real Philistine because I have never owned a Sony PlayStation. I had a PlayStation 2 and 3. I've never had a 4 or 5, but yes, I've never owned an original PlayStation. So yeah, this is going to be interesting for me and hopefully interesting for you. Right, okay, let's have a little shifty around, get out my little monitor, and we can test to see how this is working, if it's working. So I've got a copy of Ridge Racer here, which apparently is all tested and working. So let's put that in and power it up. Okay, drive's making noise. That's making the right sound. Okay. It looks like we've got a working console. Well, I wasn't expecting that. That just goes to show that I don't set anything up on this channel. I just film it and hope for the best. Well, we can take a positive from this, that we've got a working disk drive that we can keep for spare parts, but I'm still going to do the mod because that's what I planned. So yeah, it just goes to show that sometimes things you buy on eBay that are sold as faulty aren't actually faulty. So before I go ahead and buy this mod, I need to make sure that I'm definitely getting the right version for my motherboard. So to check that, we can either turn it over and look at the model number. And my model number is an SCPH-5552. Cool. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to crack this open to confirm directly on the motherboard that we buy the right mod board. So to see the motherboard, we need to dismantle it. So let's get out the grey mat and do that. There we go. So let's flip it over because that's where all the screws are. To get into our PlayStation 1, we need to undo these 6 Phillips head screws. So let's do that. Not much time today, so let's quickly shout out our channel members as I get this case unscrewed. So our channel members at time of editing are the Kip fans and the Kip early birds, who are Tim Salt, Sorcerer Stan, Mark C and Rob Lynn. Then I love these people so much I could kiss their heads. They are Bella Webster, Stairs6Pix, Lawrence, Scott Kendall, Props Retrofix, Coaster Chelsea, DD Media Production, Lee Benz, Alan and David Hughes, James and Danny and Alex Bennett. Then we have got the nuttiest people of them all, and there's a cheeky upgrade here as well. So first up we've got the lovely Becky Boobar, the insatiable Alan Green and the delightful Danielle Adele. And then boom, we've got our Kip Mental, and that is RJ Prate. Thank you RJ for your Kip Mental support, and big love to all my channel members no matter what level you're at. Anyway, let's get this top off. Not like that. And with those screws removed, we can pull the top off. We've got the power supply, which is here. Because I've just switched this on, there'll probably be some charge in the capacitors. I'm going to keep my fingers well away from that. So we'll take out the CD drive to start with. So we just pull out this ribbon cable. And then we undo this little connector down here. And then our CD drive should just lift off. We've obviously got a working CD drive, or mostly working CD drive, so we can keep this for spares. Right, our next job is to unplug this connector that goes to our power supply board. And then finally, we've just got to undo this connector that goes from the main board to our controller ports and memory card ports. And that reveals the 4 screws that we've got to undo. So with those screws removed, we can pull up this big shield. So on the board, we've got this big shiny copper shielding thing. But I think if we lift that up, there you go. It's a bit difficult to see, but we have got a PU18 board. There we go, you can see that a little bit clearer, PU18. So we know that the kit that we have to buy from AliExpress has to be the one suitable for a PU18 motherboard. Okay, well what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video there for me and get the part ordered, and then come back in a few seconds or a week or so for me once the kit has arrived from AliExpress and we can get it installed. So yes, back in a second. So it's a week or so later and my XStation kit has arrived from AliExpress. It comes in 2 bags. We'll look at this bag a little bit later because we don't need to worry about that at the moment, but this is our important bag for now. So here's the contents of the kit. So we've got our XStation board, we've got our SD card with the software on, we've got a ribbon cable, and then we've got the XStation QSB or quick solder board. Now the QSB will look different depending on which model of PlayStation that you've got. That's what it looks for my PU18 one. So yeah, this guy is going to be replacing our CD-ROM drive, and the quick solder board taps into a few points on the board and uses the ribbon cable to connect that to our XStation board. Now before we get the quick solder board installed, we need to lift some pins on the motherboard. So let's move this out of the way and get the motherboard out and we can have a little look. Ah yes, I've forgotten, we haven't actually removed the motherboard from the case. We need to remove these 4 screws here. Right, so now we should be able to lift the motherboard out of the case. Right, and our chip that we're interested in is actually under this copper shielding. So let's bend that back. And it's this guy here, which is IC701, and that is a CXD2545Q chip. Now, as you can see, there are numbers around the board that basically tell you where all the leg numbers are, and those will be quite helpful for us in the next stage. So what we need to do is lift the following legs on this chip: 45, 46, 47, 56, 74, 77, 78 and 80. And we need to lift those clear away from the board so they're not making contact with the solder pads underneath them. And I think I'm going to use my very, very fine pointed test lead to help me lift them out of the way. That is fiddly. Now this is built with leaded solder, so you have to get the soldering iron up to a higher temperature to melt the solder on it. But yeah, I got those guys up and out of the way eventually. It's very fiddly. And also you have to make sure that they're not touching each other as well. So now I'm going to move on to pin 56. Perfect, 56 is done. So now we've just got 74, 77, 78 and 80 to do. So there we have the pins lifted up from their pads, and I've put some Kapton tape underneath to stop them from sort of going down and shorting on them when it's installed in the case. It was quite a fiddly job, if I'm being completely honest with you. I did struggle with that, but we got there in the end. So we're now looking at the other side of the board, and we're around by this 140-748 IC. Now what we need to do here is just scratch away gently at this via here and apply some solder to it, because the rest of the points on the board we're going to be tapping off points that are already soldered, but there's this via and another via, which I'll show you in a second, which need a blob of solder on because we need to solder onto those points as well. So I'm just going to use the end of some tweezers and just give it a little scritchy scratch. Slightly difficult to see, but we just need a bit of sort of bright shininess there for us to apply our little solder blob. There we go, nice little blob of solder. And then we move the board right over to where the B is, and we've got this little via down here. So once again, we need to scratch off a tiny bit of the mask, and then we can add some fresh solder to it. Lovely stuff. So there we go. We've got a nice shiny bit of board ready to attach our QSB onto. So before we install our QSB board, we need to remove this tiny resistor here. I think it's a 220 ohm resistor, because it's 2 2s and then 1, and that means 1 0, so it's a 220 ohm resistor. And that is gone. So now we're ready to install our QSB, and it goes a little something like this. It's not fully straight yet, but can you see we've got these little sort of solder points around the board, around the edge of the board. Yeah, we've just got to solder it in position really. So I think we're just going to have to do this under the microscope. I'll probably start and get like the opposite corners-ish done first and make sure it's lined up, and then continue, because if you start on one side, these things can very sort of quickly slip out of position, and you don't want that. We'll start on one corner, then maybe go to the other, then do something in the middle, and that should hopefully mean that everything is lined up. But yes, there's just lots of fiddly solder points to do. Yay! So now I'm just whizzing through making off all of these solder connections, like I say, starting in one corner, moving to the other corner, and then just going around the whole board. And it's just a case of applying a little bit of flux, then the solder, and yeah, just checking everything is lined up as you go. It all actually works out pretty well. And then finally you just give it a little bit of a clean. And then we just need to put a fresh blob of solder on this APLL point here. So all we've got to do now is run a wire from by where we removed that resistor from earlier to this APLL point on the board that I just put some fresh solder on. So let's do that. That is our QSB quick solder board installed. That was actually not too bad really. It felt like it went on okay. It's just all about trying to get it straight. I did have a little bit of an issue down here, but I managed to sort of get it roughly in position. I think it will all work. So now we need to turn our attention back to the case because we've got to do a little modification on that before we can fit this in position. So if we turn our attention here to the base of the case, we need to remove this shielding, and then we need to cut out this little support that is here. And that's basically because it's in the way of where our flex cable is going to go in a moment. So I'm going to use some tin snips to just sort of break it away. There we go. It doesn't have to be perfect, but yeah, that's it. Just sort of sheared down so it doesn't interfere with our cable. So now we need to install the ribbon cable that was included with the kit into our QSB board. And we need to ensure that the blue layer is facing up. We also need to make sure that this bit of plastic here is pulled down. And if we slide it in, we can then lock it in position. So let's get our case, put the shielding piece back in. So then it's just a case of restoring the 4 screws that go along the back of the board. Right, so now we've got to get our top shield in position, and we need to thread our ribbon cable through this thin hole at the front, like that. And we've got to pull it through and make sure it doesn't catch on anything. This is hurting my brain slightly. I've got a spare screw and I don't know where it's from. I think I'm going to have to go back and look at the tape. Annoying. I made a little mistake actually. When I took this plate off originally, I removed that screw there thinking that you needed to remove it to get the plate off, but you don't. It's actually one of the screws that goes underneath. So yeah, I had 3 screws left and that was right for the 1, 2, 3 that are there. So that's good. So our top plate is in position and all screwed down. Anyway, let's get this plugged back in so we can actually try and see if it works. So if we plug in the power board connector, and then we plug in the controller port connector. Now we've got the ribbon that's going to go to our XStation board. We need to do a bit of jiggery pokery with that. First, we need this little plastic T-piece because that's going to come in helpful. So what we have to do is we have to get our ribbon and bend it back, and then we have to put a 90-degree angle in it, but not like a press down, force down type thing. It's just a very gentle bend. And then if we get our T-piece, and the T-piece has got these sort of slightly raised bits, and those face up like that. So on the XStation board, we need to have this open and in the down position like it is now. Connector goes into it with the blue side facing up. And we get that right in position and then press the tab down to lock it in. And then we sort of need to fold the board round again to make another 90-degree angle. And the board just sits on 2 of the original 3 mounting points for the CD drive. So it looks something like that. And then finally we have this piece here, this other plastic piece that we will lay on top. Because the ribbon flex isn't used to being bent around, it's a bit springy at the moment. I'm just going to put my solder on top of it to hold it down. And then all we really need is the top of the case. And yeah, we just got to sort of, and there we go. Our XStation is nicely in where our CD drive used to be. And this little slot here is where we can put our SD card. So to all intents and purposes, this is now done. We just got to put in the back 6 screws, put in the SD card and fire it up, and hopefully all will be dandy. So let's use the power of YouTube, get this reassembled, and we can test it. There we go, all done. Right, let's open up the CD drive. or the not CD drive. We get out the SD card that came included with it. I think if you don't get the SD card, then you have to get your own SD card and put the XStation software on there. So yeah, I thought getting the SD card would be easier. And we put in the SD card face up like that, and then slide it and click it into position. Lovely. Oh, hang on. Didn't put the parallel I/O cover back on. Lovely. Does it work? I'm feeling mildly confident. It was pretty straightforward, aside from doing the pin lifting, but we'll see. Let's power it on. Oh, yes, video. Oh. Oh. Wow, it works. Now, what options do we have? Oh, okay. So we can change the settings, so we can make it so it boots up into the last game or just the loader. Seasonal theme off. Yeah, I don't really want the Christmas. Excellent. Save and exit. Wow, okay, so there's quite a few games here. I just want to play me some Ridge Racer. Is that possible? Okay, well, we don't have the original Ridge Racer, but we do have Ridge Racer Type 4, Japan/Asia. So is this like a region mod as well? I don't know what a fast load and full load is. Let's just do a full load. It's running at 6. Oh no, it's running at 50 Hertz. Okay. Ah, maybe fast load boots straight into the game rather than doing this situation. Oh, it's at 60 Hertz.
Ridge Racer Type 4.
Ooh.
Real Racing Roots 99 in Helter Skelter. 3, 2, 1, go! Here we go. It's time.
Literally no idea where I'm going, guys. And what happens if we press reset? Does that take us back to the loader? I assume so. Or does that just restart the game? No. Okay, so reset resets the game, but if we power off and power back on again, we should get into the XStation menu. Oh, I forgot, I'm using the RGB cable that I got from AliExpress now. I'll make sure there's a link to that in the comments, and yeah, the picture definitely looks better. What's really interesting that I had no idea is that it's a region mod as well. It is slightly unfortunate in some ways that the original drive did appear to be working, but I do have a spare now, so I could maybe pick up another one of these on eBay with a faulty drive and repair it with my seemingly working drive. But obviously, because I've only got one game, I might need to do a little bit of testing. But this XStation mod wasn't too difficult to install. I think the only slightly hairy bit is lifting those pins around that chip. That was a real struggle. But doing the soldering of the little quick solder board, that was pretty straightforward and easy. You know, you just had to make sure it was all lined up, take your time, and it works. Well, I really hope this video has been interesting to you and helped you out. If you found this video just by stumbling across it and wanting to install one of these into your own console, then please do make sure you give it a like, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and do drop a comment as well to let me know if you've installed it. I really do love reading comments like that because these videos take a while to make, and knowing that people have followed along and fitted their own kit while watching this video really does mean the world to me. And yeah, it'll mean the world to me if you come back for the next video. But I don't think I've got anything else left to say, so thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, but for now, it's game over.